All righty. Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in with us again to this week's Wine of the Week virtual wine tasting for Tipple's Brews and Wines in Gainesville, Florida, with Elizabeth and Jeff Vaudrey. Let's get into it. This week, we're going to be jumping into an area of Italy that we have not enjoyed yet, Montepulciano. So,
Jeff's favorite word. He loves saying it because the dog's name is Monty. So he says Montepulciano to the dog.
You guys might have seen it in the password, Montepulciano. Right. So this week we're drinking La Quercia.
Okay.
Montepulciano di Abruzzo, Colline, Terramano.
It sounds good to me.
Right. All right. DOCG. We'll talk about what that means in a little bit. So let's jump over to the slide, please.
Before you pour for us, because I'm sure they're all drinking.
That's fine. I normally say that after the first slide.
Okay. All right. I've needed some wine today. So all right, hold on.
Okay. Yes, I believe it.
You know I do.
Right. So wine enthusiast rating 89 points. So I always say points are the beginning of a discussion, not the end of a discussion. And 89 is not bad. We'll cover exactly what that designates at the end. So, but yes, a sub 90 pointer, according to wine enthusiasts. We'll see what we think about this guy. And there are a lot of really good reasons to drink this wine to learn about Montepulciano.
Okay.
So food pairings, it's the ultimate pizza wine in general. Ragu bolognese, burgers, beef or impossible, whichever way you want to go. Very good, easy, there's a lot of easy pairings. You could be barbecue with this, burgers, steaks.
It's a more casual red.
It is in
because
general.
I'm looking at more casual foods.
Right.
Okay.
Generally Montepulciano is.
Okay.
Now there is one specific little region that takes it up a notch, and I thought it would be fun. That's what we're going to explore tonight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
all right.
Yes, this one isn't as much the casual, but it is from an area that lots of it is. But there is this one area that kind of elevates the winemaking.
Hence the Riserva.
Hence the Riserva and the designation of DOCG.
Okay.
Which I will definitely explain.
Okay, cool.
All right, let's jump back and get you some wine to drink.
Yes.
So if you've not already done so, please pop that bottle open and pour yourselves a glass. I gave mine a light chill to get it down into the 60s, around 60 degrees, 55 to 60 would be European cellar temperature. That is not required in any way, but it is just a historic starting point. And it will warm up to your room temperature while you're drinking it anyway, but I like to just start there. It makes me feel good.
Jeff also likes the evolution
of
the wine. He likes to taste the evolution from it being European cellar temperature to Florida room temperature.
Florida room temperature, yes, exactly. So this guy, as everyone gets there, take a look, take a sniff.
Yeah, I definitely can't see through this one.
Very intensely colored grape. That is part of the grape itself. The grape is this is 100% Montepulciano as the grape. Now there is which we'll talk about, there can be confusion with using the word Montepulciano.
Okay.
All right, because it is a region.
Right.
It is a grape. And sometimes people call it Montepulciano Vino Nobile, and then it's Sangiovese. So it's like, thank you, Italy. That's not hard at all. But this is Montepulciano from Montepulciano.
Okay.
All right, because I wanted to explore that.
So let me ask you a question though. You said it's a region and a grape.
Yes.
Is it grown other places?
It is.
It is.
We're going to cover that.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's a great question. And I'm really glad I'm prepared for it. All right. So alcohol content, 14.5%.
Okay.
So nice amount. Aged 24 months in oak. So it sees a good amount of oak. Get in there. Wow. And it shows up right on the nose.
Yeah.
Ageability on this guy? Yes. All right. So 10 to 15 years easily. And for this guy, which is a higher upper echelon Montepulciano, potentially 20 plus years.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So what vintage are we?
This is, by the way, this vintage 2013.
Oh, wow.
So this is a very beautifully mature
9
high-end
years.
Montepulciano.
So if this one's aged 20 years, so we're almost at the halfway point then for this one.
Right.
Okay.
So we should be leaning right into that peak zone
Mhm.
where we're getting to really taste what they wanted to express. I was excited about seeing that vintage on there and being able to bring that in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow, it's so expressive on the nose. So let's get into a little bit about what we're smelling, what we're
Okay.
tasting on this guy. All right, now that we've kind of covered some of the intro. So pretty red fruits,
Mhm.
right? So red cherry, red plum, and herbs. Get like a nice tarragon, like a bright greenish herb, like a tarragon kind of thing. Maybe a bright basil.
Oh, yeah.
And cedar. All right, so go check it again for cedar.
I feel like I wasn't smelling it at all before, and then you said it, and I was like, how did I miss that?
How did I miss the cedar? Now, and some people say it's the power of suggestion.
Well,
Other people
sure.
say it's just defining what you're already,
Because I
breaking
feel
apart.
like when you said like basil, I was like, I think I'm getting that. And then cedar, I went, oh, that's what I'm smelling. Is the
No, there's a
cedar.
ton of cedar
Yeah.
on here. There's a ton, but unless you're thinking cedar, but there's a ton of
Right.
cedar on here, and there's like a licorice quality and anise.
I was definitely going to say anise.
Yeah. Nice call.
Thank you. But I was going to say it, but sometimes I just keep these things inside because I'm just afraid I'm going to be so judged by you that,
I'm not judging you. I don't judge
just
people.
all inside.
No, and I'm not going to judge anybody when I'm sipping on this delight. Oh my gosh.
Linda said rosemary.
I can totally go with it. Yes,
And then agree with the cedar. Yeah.
I agree. When you go with that herbs, playing around with the cedar, you get a little bit of that piney combo. I think rosemary is a great call for that same structure.
And then Robin, I agree with the rosemary. We have some fresh in the fridge and was just smelling it to see. Yeah.
Right. So we're getting a lot of that same on the palate.
Chris says violets.
On the aromatics or on the palate, Chris? Or both?
Probably a little bit of both, but initially I was like, yeah, I mean, like a slightly perfume. The wine's not perfumey, to be clear, but a slightly perfumey flower, and a little bit on the taste too.
Now I can go with it because it is very aromatic. It's very pretty, and I can go with a floral component. No doubt. I agree 100%. And how about those tannins, right?
Nicely
This
grippy.
guy, no wonder it can go with those big robust meats,
Yeah.
right? It has really nice, they're small in size. They're not quite powdery, but they're small.
I can feel that they're small. I don't know what you mean by powdery, but
Powdery is when it almost just feels like it's coated your tongue, literally with a powder. And that's common in Italy. But this guy's a little bigger tannin than that, but it's still very small, a nice powerhouse wine to go with a really, rich red meat or meat type meal.
Anybody have anything else they're tasting or smelling or questions about what they're tasting or smelling?
Wants to glue my tongue to the roof of my mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a great definition for tannin. And it really coats the whole palate.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
I think for me, like when I was drinking Italian wines and texting Jeff and going like, what is it that I love? Because I didn't have any of the words then besides I just love it. But I think it's the herbiness. And I think you labeled that really well from the very beginning, like just because it gives it a little bit of a drier, like the fruit is still still don't have the words. You still taste the grape very well, but then that herb dry flavor combination with the sweetness of the fruit. It's not one of those reds where you don't taste any sweet, but it's not sweet. I don't know how to say that better, but I think that herbiness definition with the grape was just like perfect of like what I love about it. It makes it feel bigger. I think that's what the two flavor combinations together just make it feel bigger, and I love it.
Yeah. I think with the tannins too, like the grippiness of the tannins makes it feel bigger too.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great wine in that I'm enjoying it thoroughly,
Mhm.
but it would be amazing. Okay, Jason agrees with Julie about that. Awesome. It would
Yeah.
be amazing with food. What a food and okay. Jason and Jen agree with Julie.
Yeah.
We're all Jason and Jen agree with Julie, and
And
Jeff says so.
yeah, you just
All right.
have to have a J name evidently
That's
to be
right.
in that conversation.
But yeah, incredible with food as well.
Mhm.
But what I like is it doesn't require food. Like honestly, there's some Sangioveses, they're amazing wines. I had one today.
Mhm.
But I was like, I need this with food at the same time in
Mhm.
order to really appreciate it, right?
Yeah.
This guy is kind of a both. Now, one might say, Jeff said that this is a very special Montepulciano. What
Mhm.
would we experience from a more ordinary Montepulciano?
Sure.
All right, so you're still going to get the fruit and the herbiness,
Mhm.
but you're not going to get the tannins.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
And-
So it's not going to feel as
Right.
heavy or.
Right,
yeah.
and it's going to be more, it's going to be fruitier with
Okay.
less herbs, less of
Mhm.
an overall balance of
Okay.
qualities
Mhm.
in there. So they're kind of fruitier. They do have a nice dryness, but they'll have lower tannins and a lower herbal quality.
But if you are,
But they're really fun.
if you're new to wine tasting and you're saying it's fruitier, you're going to associate that with sweet or
Right,
somehow.
not
Right.
sweet,
Right.
but you will get more fruit with a little less herb
Mhm.
and certainly less of that tannic grip.
Okay.
And it's kind of one of those Montepulciano, when they call it like a pizza night, lasagna night wine, it is like the more common ones. They're very nice. They're very tasty.
Mhm.
Like go for it. But I just want to kind of explain what you might get differently.
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
Are they all this dark red? Great question. Almost always they will be. That is part of the grape. The grape creates very dark wines. And that's kind of an aberration within Italy, right? Because a lot of Italian wines are powerhouses, but you can see right through them.
Yeah, which is really, I don't know. It's just hard for me to wrap my mind around that sometimes where I'm seeing through it and then it tastes so much bigger than it looks. So
Right.
my mind is expecting one thing and then
Right. And then you get
I
that.
experience another. Yeah.
So
drinking it.
I'm really glad you asked that question. That was an excellent one. Yes, they do tend to be this dark. Maybe not quite as dark as this, but they're going to be in that range.
Is this a red skin, red flushed grape or is it still a white flush? red
Still
skin?
white flesh.
Okay.
Mhm. All right. Why don't we jump on over?
Okay.
Any last thoughts before I go through the labels or the label? There's one.
Well, there's
Or was
just
it back
there's
and
not one on the
front?
back?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So any last thoughts before I jump back over to the slides?
Okay.
I'm going to just enjoy drinking while you guys are thinking.
Hey, Jeff, I have a question for you. Why is this one taste good right off the bat without breathing a lot?
So that's going to be a
I'll
combination.
stop this a moment.
That's going to be a combination. It's a good question too. It's a combination of the grape and the fact that it's a Riserva. So it's already had time. It's already been aged a minimum of 2 years before going into the bottle. And now it's had many years in the bottle to relax. So we don't need to give it as much time to breathe because it's already evolved and it's ready to roll. And so that would be why.
So the Riserva, but also because we're 9 years into it.
That's right.
Mhm.
It's a combination of those factors.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a good question because that's the thing. If you were to get this thing in 2015, we would have needed to let it open up.
Okay.
Right.
It would feel
It
tighter.
would be really tight and wound up, and we would need to give it a breath before we would enjoy it this much.
How long has ours been open?
Ours has been open only about 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
No, 30 minutes now.
Okay.
So
Okay. I will share. Next.
yes, please. All right. Wine label review. All right. So we'll take a look here. Obviously the name La Quercia. La Quercia, by the way, means the oak.
Ah.
Montepulciano di Abruzzo. So it's from the region of Montepulciano. Within that, it's from Abruzzo. Abruzzo is the name of the region in Italy. Montepulciano is a larger region within
Okay.
Italy, right?
So we're getting more myopic.
Right. And then we go to Colline, Terramane. So Colline Terramane within Abruzzo is the only area that is a DOCG, which we're going to discuss on the next
Okay.
slide, all right?
Mhm.
It's a designation of quality, and we'll talk about specifically what it means. The wines are made from vines that are over 50 years old. And like I said, the Riserva means it's been aged for a minimum of 2 years before going into the bottom. So we're saying, okay, it's got some age. It's got a very specific designation of location. That's going to make me feel good if I'm blind, picking up this bottle on a shop and getting no help.
What's the gold?
The
sticker?
gold sticker, this is something no one would know. Like, this is the thing you would only know from talking to your wine shop merchants, right? Where this is something that this importer, and I know this importer very well, puts in there that says small vineyards.
Okay.
That designates with these guys that it is a small family-owned production.
Okay. So that's what the gold label is, what you wrote on top there, the small vineyards.
Right, the small vineyards, it's that gold
Okay.
label, because you won't find it on most
Mhm.
things. It's just, it's not their official label. It's when they bring it into the US through this importer. That importer likes to put this on there to tell
Okay.
people, hey, if you're looking for a small family-owned,
Mhm.
kind of an artisanal production,
Right.
this is where you would head.
Wait, one
Hey,
more.
Jeff,
Mhm.
last week, or could have been the week before, who knows, where we were talking about where they would import from other areas because they couldn't produce enough. I feel like that was last week.
Mhm.
Can these kind of small vineyards, when they label themselves with this way, can they cheat like that and import from other areas, or are they not allowed to?
No, they can. They sometimes will purchase from neighbors, but if it's in the same geographic area, so in this case, it would be from the same Colline location, then they would still be able to call themselves that. And that's because that location has been designated to create a certain flavor profile in their grapes. And so it leaves it as a viable thing to do.
Okay, so Linda had the exact same question I was about to ask.
Okay.
And so she wants to know if the definition of Riserva is uniform, because I feel like we've said before, it doesn't have an actual
No.
definition, but now you're saying it does. It does it just for this region or just for Italy?
So that's a great question.
Okay.
And it does not have a universal definition. Not only does it change within country to country and not mean the same thing. So in Spain, in Italy, it means something very specific.
Okay.
It's defined. But in the US, it is not.
All right.
In South Africa, it's not. In Argentina, it is not. So it is not a universal thing. It's only designated within certain countries. In other areas, they can throw Riserva on what they spilled off the back of the tractor. But in Italy and in Spain are good examples. Riserva has specific definitions.
Okay.
Yeah, it's wonderful because it changes with every country.
Yeah, well, that's why, because I felt like, haven't we said something different in the past?
Mhm.
So, okay. You can do the back if you want now.
Okay, let's do the back. Doing the back. All right, so Montepulciano, all these listings that we had before, the vintage 2013. Hello. Wonderful write-up about the vineyard and the winemaker, and the 50 years comes right off the back. But I mean, if you're looking at this label, which is the point of this exercise, with no one to help you, you can see, wow, these are old vines,
Right.
Specific information about it, really helpful to say, this is worth taking a bet on. This is why it costs more than the other Montepulciano next to it for $12,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Imported by August Wine Group. I happen to know them specifically. I know several of the people, so I know how that works, which is why for me, I'm like, oh, it's
Yeah.
August, but that's a me thing. They've got the ABV on there, the contains sulfites, which it does. In Italy, a little tip for people that are sensitive to sulfites, in general, they add very few to no sulfites to their wines. So there will be sulfites naturally occurring in any wine. There is no sulfite-free wine unless they've chemically treated it to remove them, and that is not going to taste good. So, but Italy is a great way to go for people that do tend to get headaches from wine.
Except this one says they're sulfites, so maybe avoid this one, or is this just saying they're natural sulfites?
No, just they're natural sulfites.
Okay.
So every
Okay.
wine says contains sulfites,
Okay.
including organics,
Okay.
because they're naturally occurring.
Okay.
Mhm.
It's just that they don't use them to preserve it like a lot of other countries do.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And the reason, you know, if you want it to last 30, 40 years, you put in sulfites, right?
Right.
It's a great stabilizer.
Mhm. It just causes headaches
So-
in a lot of people, so.
And then on the neck, you've got once again the listing of the Montepulciano, you know, D'Abruzzo, Colline. So it's got the designation again. So that is a specific necker
Mhm.
attachment that has to go on there. Well, it doesn't have to. You get to put it on there when you meet those requirements, right?
That's specific to the region or the country?
The country, the region,
Okay.
the sub-region, all of it.
Okay.
And it's meeting those designations for
Mhm.
the quality designation of DOCG.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, you get to put this on.
Okay.
And there's a reason it doesn't match the label, because this is the official designation from the country,
Mhm.
you know.
So people who know it, that means that's a big deal.
Yes,
Okay.
Jeff,
yes.
so we apologize. We missed the good answer about the sulfites.
Yeah, how do you know if there's extra? Like this says contains sulfites, but you said it's because it's natural. So how do you know if somebody uses it to preserve the wine versus not?
It's a great question. Unfortunately, the requirements for labeling in the United States do not require people to put added sulfites on the label. I think it would be wonderful if they were required to give people a better idea. Instead, what I know, you know, it's more of, because I know how wine is made from different countries in the world, I can say Italy tends not to add them. It doesn't mean there are none, but they tend not to.
Right.
And other areas, and adding sulfites does not mean lower quality. It's just a different choice on the winemaker's part. But like in France, they do tend to add them because they want them to be shelf stable for a much longer period of time to mature. So it's kind of a stylistic choice. And but yeah, I think you're right. I wish they would require that. There are a lot of things I wish they would require, which we could talk about later, for the labeling of wines in this country. I think it would be to the benefit
Well,
of quality wine production.
It'd be nice, like food labels. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
So you would have all these amazing wineries like this that have absolutely nothing to hide behind.
Right.
And like, yes, here you go. Here are
Right.
my open books.
Right.
And right now their label looks the same as somebody who highly manipulates their wine.
Right.
And I think people would like to know the difference.
Absolutely. People would like to know the difference.
Mhm. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah. So the answer is ask the wine guys, and they probably know.
We'll help as
whether-
much as we
yeah.
can. Yeah. Next
Okay.
slide. Yep. Okay, so I
Now we
told
get to
you.
the DOCG that you.
So here we are, the Italian wine classifications, right? So in ascending level of quality, right? Vino da Tavola, right? So that's just, all right, I'm from Italy, all right?
Okay.
So the next one, the IGT, right? That's from a general area. It's like, hey,
Okay.
you know, I'm from Montepulciano somewhere. And Montepulciano has 4 different subregions.
Okay.
So you're like, hey, I'm from around here. It's probably collecting from a couple locations.
Okay.
Once again, doesn't mean poor quality, because IGT, some of the best super Tuscans. All right, I know now I'm throwing a wine term out, but all right, so in Tuscany, that's where Chianti comes from. But if you're not making Chianti, they also grow some wonderful French varietals. So Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Petit Verdot, even some Syrah. So if they grow those other varietals that are not officially approved for Chianti use, they have to just not be called a DOC, because the DOC says it's from an area and these are the grapes we use. So if you jump outside those guidelines, a lot of really good wine is just IGT. I'm from Tuscany.
Okay.
All right. So when you get to DOC, it says just area, right? It's like, hey, I guarantee you we're from this area, but it usually means more than that. It
Okay.
usually means I'm from this area and I have at least X% of this specific grape.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of Chianti is DOC,
Okay.
right? And it's made out of Sangiovese and it's from Chianti. So then you have DOCG. So DOCG means I'm from this area, I'm using this grape, and it's a certain quality level that we've judged to be superior.
Okay.
So it's a
when you see
guarantee of
that, it
quality.
does mean quality. The
Right.
others, IGT doesn't mean that it's low quality, but when you see DOCG, it does mean, okay, this is a certain quality.
That's right,
Yeah.
exactly. And then together DOC and DOCG are called DOP,
Okay.
which, I'm thinking, I always think of it as like, oh, the protected class. Like, all right, these are the ones we're particularly proud of,
Okay.
and they are particularly indicative of classic Italian styling.
And then Chris and Robin said DOP is also used for balsamic, assuming it's related. I don't know. Do you know?
No, I don't know, but I would assume they're related as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So that's an Italian only designation, these letters.
Yeah. That's the Italian what?
Only designation.
Right.
That's not for other because.
Right. This is
Yeah.
Italian only. It's different in Spain. It's different in France. Yeah, exactly. But this is how the Italians work out. And yeah, luckily you just have to memorize 4 or 5 different countries around the world, and then you'll know exactly what they're
Just
talking
4 or
about.
5?
Yeah,
I
that's
think
it.
there are more than that.
No, I mean, but with the different designations.
Oh, okay.
Because we don't get as thorough in the US,
Mhm.
right? We just say, hey, it's from Napa.
Right.
And maybe it's from Diamond Mountain within Napa, but
Mhm.
it's up to you to,
But we don't have these like acronym designations for it. I
Right.
mean, we'll say the appellation and stuff. but
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, there's another chat.
okay.
Why is this wine in a Pinot Noir style bottle instead of a Cabernet style bottle?
Yes, so this is the special Reserva. I believe they changed the bottling.
Mhm.
It's a very small production, comparatively.
Mhm.
And I believe that the only ones available for us to grab the images, they haven't updated it.
Okay.
So, but it is unusual to use this Burgundian style bottle, which is
Mhm.
more of a Pinot style bottle, like you mentioned, rather than most Italians are in the Bordeaux style bottles, the thinner ones. But you can see it used to be in the Bordeaux because this is
Yeah.
exactly that wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the Bordeaux's because they fit easily on all of the slots
Mhm.
everywhere in the store. Are
Oh, wow. Okay.
you ready?
Mhm.
Okay.
All right. So the Montepulciano grape. The origin is in Tuscany in Italy,
Mhm.
right alongside Sangiovese. It is related to Sangiovese, but it makes a much darker grape
Mhm.
and it can provide more fruit, but it does get a similar feel on the tannins and a similar acid, because it's got a nice brightness to the red fruit. Like there is acid in there, which also helps it age.
Mhm.
So it does get confusing that within Montepulciano, they do grow Sangiovese. So they call that Vino Nobile de Montepulciano or Montepulciano Vino Nobile. They'll throw it in there.
But it's Sangiovese.
That's Sangiovese within Montepulciano
don't
outside
like
of Tuscany.
Call it Sangiovese in Montepulciano. or
It would be a
something.
lovely thing, right? But within Montepulciano, you also have Montepulciano.
Right.
And Montepulciano, so Sangiovese is the largest acreage coverage grape grown in Italy. Number 2 is Montepulciano.
But we said it's the largest because it's a blending grape, right? So it's,
What, Sangi?
yeah.
No, Sangi
Don't
is alone a lot.
No, but I mean, so it's not just a blending grape, but I mean,
Right.
like the cab we had last night had some Sangi in it.
Oh,
So
right.
It's something that's used alone, but also it's thrown into a lot of different.
True. Yes, absolutely. And Montepulciano is as well.
Okay,
It's done alone and
Right.
also blended in.
okay.
All right.
This is a beautiful shot.
It is. Very
Yeah.
nice, right?
Mhm. You ready?
Yes.
Okay.
So here we go. What are we getting out of here? Red plum, oregano. So just call that herbs in general,
Okay.
right? Depending on which side we
Okay.
land. Sour cherry. That's going to me a reference to the acid tartness of some of the red fruit, right? Boysenberry, a little bit darker, maybe a little bit blackberry hanging in there as well. And then tar, which to me, I'm getting more cedar and licorice. Would I go tar? I mean, I wouldn't not say there couldn't be any tar in that, and they don't all have to line up 100%.
I feel like
Everyone's
I'm-
going to be, it's just, if you pick up 2 or 3 or 4 of those in there, it's fair enough.
I feel like it's gotten a little more tart
Mhm.
as it's open for us. And I don't feel like it's evolved a lot, but I feel like I'm getting a little more tartness.
I can see that. It is changed a little bit.
Mhm.
It's become the fruit's kind of standing out a little bit more.
Yeah, which might be why I'm
Mhm.
like getting the tart notes more.
Right. And then a nice look, you get that barrel. It's an interesting thing. And I find this to be very stylistically ubiquitous across Italy, is that very dry barrel, a very, kind of not this luscious. For those of us that had the young barrel aged Merlot last night, that big vanilla thing,
Right.
this is not that, right?
Mhm.
It's more of this toasty, dry barrel that's just a whiff at the end, and it doesn't overwhelm the wine. It plays with the wine. So medium fruit, fairly heavy body, fairly heavy color, fairly heavy, medium high tannin. I could go
Right.
with all of that. Medium high acidity,
Mhm.
that does apply. And the alcohol right at medium, medium plus.
14.5 medium for a wine. I feel like when
I feel
we-
like that could be medium plus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because otherwise if you were to say high, which I get high is 16.
Yeah,
But you don't see a lot of 16s. You
No,
see
I
a
feel
lot
like-
of 14s.
a lot of 14s. I feel like we're in the 14 range a lot. And
For
then
reds, right?
for reds. And then occasionally I think we've hit 15 and a half, but I think that's the highest that we've hit in the group.
We did have that one Australian that was 16
and
plus.
You always say that because I always forget about that. That's the ball buster.
The ball buster,
Yeah.
yeah. I miss them. They're not in the state anymore.
Oh, that's a shame. It was
Yeah.
a good wine.
It was a good wine.
So, yeah, and I think but I think most of the time it's 14.5. We've
Right.
had 14.8.
Right.
But so we peak up there, but I feel like
Right.
it's,
Yeah.
so I guess for a red.
Yeah, we
that
see
makes
this a
sense
lot.
Since we,
It'll be in the middle
we're
range.
often in that range. Should I move on?
Yes, please. All right, so where is Montepulciano grown, right? So Italy is green in the circle. So it's not only grown in Italy, but it's pretty much only grown in
Yeah,
Italy, right?
yeah.
So Argentina, United States, and others are all that one little sliver at the top
Do they
together.
call it Montepulciano in all these other places, or do they call it other things?
I've never heard it called anything else. so.
Okay, all right. Whew. It's nice to hear a grape that's called the same thing wherever it's grown.
Right. Well, it helps when almost all of it is just grown
Well,
in
that's
the
true.
region where it comes from.
Yeah.
Right. So this one's a little bit easy, right?
Yeah, this is
It's
kind
pretty
of,
much grown in Italy.
kind of an
right.
easy graph here.
So next one, please. So anatomy of this grape. So we're dealing with a very intense skin, and then the peripheral zone out there, a lot of flavor, a lot of color coming from there, but with a nice balance because the intermediate zone in the center does keep a nice acidity. So not quite a balanced grape, obviously, and a ton of intensity on the outside, but I do like that it keeps that freshness and it doesn't just become a berry bomb,
Mhm.
even when it ripens fully. Because it's clearly a ripe grape. Look at the darkness and the color and
Oh,
all
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
So, next slide, please. So where on earth are we? We are in the northern wine latitude, right in the middle of Italy, which puts it right in
Actually, the center
middle,
of that, yeah.
the center of the
Center
northern,
Mhm.
growing latitude. So Montepulciano. So Montepulciano is actually all of these regions,
Oh,
right? It's the center. So, but we're dealing with Abruzzo, so we're here.
okay.
And we're over toward the coast, actually specifically for us. And actually Montepulciano, well, here we go. This is where Montepulciano is grown.
Oh, wow.
So like when they said it has a tremendous coverage of acreage throughout Italy,
Yeah.
second to Sangiovese, well, they mean it, it's
Mhm.
all over. So Sangiovese's main home area is up here, but it's clearly grown right alongside.
Yeah.
So kind of an interesting thing within each of the different areas that Montepulciano is grown, they have their own designations for what the percentage of Montepulciano needs to be in that bottle to be
Okay.
called Montepulciano.
So that's what we discussed that a little bit at the live tasting last night
Mhm.
with cab, how much cab has to be in the bottle for it to be called cab and not a blend. And it does depend on where you are.
Very much.
So here it depends on where you are, not only like within Italy, but within the region, within
Yes.
Italy, or this is regions within Montepulciano?
Right, these are 4 different regions
Okay.
within Montepulciano,
Okay, and they all have different,
and they all have different amounts. So let's look at the one we're dealing with tonight, right? Second one down from the top,
Mhm.
Montepulciano di Abruzzo, Colline, Termane, 90%.
wow.
So that is another reason that I chose this wine, not just for the quality it was
Mhm.
going to give, but because I love it when we can really explore what a grape tastes like by itself as much as
Sure.
possible.
Mhm.
And this guy, by the way, is 100%.
Wow.
So we're getting a great taste here of exploring, no matter how much you love it,
Mhm.
you're learning, this is what Montepulciano tastes like.
Right.
A well-grown Montepulciano tastes like this. So to me, that was very attractive.
Oh, absolutely. Then you know whether you like that grape or not.
Mhm.
And you're not being influenced by the other things that are in the bottle.
Right.
Mhm.
He's next. All right. So Abruzzo, Italy. It's a mountainous central region. It is so mountainous that 65% of the region is mountains. It's a lot of mountains.
Just like Florida.
Yeah, I was going to say, from a Floridian perspective, quite impressive.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Well, we say it every week,
It's
just ugly,
it's
ugly places.
so
to
ugly. Oh
say.
my God.
It's just
who
horrible.
could possibly live there? Hmm. Bordered on the east by the Adriatic Sea,
Mhm.
mountain bordered to the west by the Apennines Range. The mountain blocks storms coming in from the west
Okay.
and gives it like a rain shadow. So it helps to minimize how much rain they're getting. The Adriatic Sea moderates the temperature by having a sea breeze constantly coming in there. So the soil is calcium rich clay. High altitudes available, and they have certain valleys. So depending if you want to go a little riper, warmer growth, you can get something from a valley. You want to go up and get a cooler growth and get a little more tannin and thickness of skin, you can go up on the higher altitudes and you can combine them. So it gives a variety of options for wine growers in that area.
So also you said sea breezes. Are we talking like windy sea breezes? Like, because I know we've talked in the past about, okay, the reason that you're tasting the skin so much is because it had to become thicker to deal with like the constant wind.
Right.
I know in South Africa, that one specifically, it's even on the bottle. I
Right.
can't remember what it's called. Something wind.
Right. Not the Lait Mistral.
I don't remember.
No.
Maybe.
Anyway.
But yeah, so is this something, is it just, it's like gentle sea breezes?
It's
or
both.
Okay.
It's going to be both, you know,
Okay.
depending, but it's not always.
It's not overwhelmingly influenced by like, I know in Spain, there was a region too, maybe the Canary Islands, where they're just being battered.
They're being
by-
battered by the
yeah,
winds.
okay,
Yes. Yeah. It's not like that. It's not a constant battering of the winds. It's much
Okay.
more gentle.
Okay.
But it definitely helps keep the heat off,
Mhm.
and it gives them fogs. So they
Oh, okay.
cool off very quickly.
Mhm.
They get a nice warm day.
Mhm.
And then they cool off very quickly so they can have a long ripening period. The rain shadow keeps them from getting a late season rain unexpectedly to dilute the juice, and all of that plays to give you a lot of character
Yeah.
that you can build up on these wines. Next. Here we go. Oh no, so ugly. All right. So rolling hills into the foothills, into the mountains.
What's their soil like? Do you have a slide for that, or?
No, I just mentioned it. It's
Just-
it's a high calcium. It's a high
Okay.
calcium content clay.
Okay.
So it drains fast, high mineral content, that kind of thing. You know,
Yeah.
I got to say, I hate to say the same old, but you know, grapevines do like a certain kind of. you
They
know,
do, but we've gone to different regions where there's like more loam, or we went to that one place
Right.
where there were those giant like pieces of obsidian or
yeah,
something in there.
and like
so-
saying, and there's some with a lot of rocks and pebbles. and-
Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have a slide
That's true.
dedicated to just the soil.
Yeah, not in this one. Like if you look down here, you can see kind of a light colored,
Right.
yeah, a
Sandy
light colored
looking,
sandy
yeah.
clay. That's what they have.
Okay.
All right, so La Quercia Winery, a name means the oak, which I mentioned, founded in the late 1960s by Antonio Lamona, still run by him, winemaking by him,
Wow.
overseen by him.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he runs it with three. The description was he's running it still with three of his lifelong friends. So that's the size of organization we're talking about here. So when they say small vineyards on the sticker,
Right.
I think it's just awesome. You can see he's got solar going on.
Yeah. I mean, because Antonio's got to be at least in his 80s.
Well, we'll see him on the next screen.
Okay. So I'm impressed. All the,
Right.
yeah,
What do you think? There's probably olive trees there, huh?
probably.
Hmm,
That's fantastic.
right.
I feel like that's a very old world view too. Actually, we
Mm.
see that a lot in South America too.
Yeah, that's true.
That they-
Well, and once again, it's a similar thing to South
Mm-hmm.
America. Funny you bring that up. Because of the sea breezes, they have almost no issues with pests
Okay.
or molds. So they don't need to do it.
Right,
Which is wonderful to be like, I would never. And also you don't need.
right. Right.
It is helpful when the world lends a hand. I hope
Well,
it stays steady in the.
And I
future.
mean, also, you're not growing wine in the jungle. You're not growing wine in
Right.
Florida.
Yeah,
You-
the humidity is.
Right, where we have all the bugs.
Right.
And all the humidity.
That's the
So,
thing. is
yeah.
Humidity is monstrous. Anyway,
for-
300 days of sun a year
Oh, wow.
where they are. Constant breezes from the Adriatic, like I said, remove the pests and mold. And they've got the rain shadow from the west.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, he's got all the sun he needs, control over the water, and makes these beautiful
Yeah, he's
wines.
doing a great
Long
job.
hang time, real quality. Always farmed organically, not officially designated organic, even though he's never used a pesticide because of the work it takes and the expense to get designated organic officially.
We haven't talked about that in a while. You want to explain
Right.
what it takes to be
It
designated?
depends on where, I mean, so there are a couple of different ways you can be designated organic, but
Mhm.
most of them require you to take at least an entire vintage and throw it away. So they can say, okay, it's been at least 1 year when you've had no pesticides, because they're not going in saying, we believe you, right? They're going to take tests of the soil and then make sure that the tests a year later match up and that there's no pesticides and stuff in there. So a lot of people, and I understand this, are
You
saying,
can't take a year off.
I can't just
Yeah.
throw away a vintage.
Right,
Yeah, so,
right. Yeah, absolutely. But they can say, we've never used it. They just
Right.
can't be designated.
exactly. So they're not designated, but they really are organic.
Mhm. I feel like we hear that a lot in
We
these
do.
talks. They're not designated, but they run it organically, sustainably. you
It's
know,
very common.
Solar power.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
common in France and Italy.
Mhm.
Yeah, very, very common. And frankly, in South America, in Mendoza, especially. So,
Would you like for me to advance?
yes. All right, so
Yeah, let's go through the score explanation.
let's go on the score explanation. All right, so like I said, this guy was an 89, right?
Mhm.
That would be considered a very good wine of special qualities, right? Is it a 90 to 94? An outstanding wine of superior character and style. I honestly feel like we see more 90 pluses than makes sense in the market. But as you know, they're all outstanding, but things skew in that direction, right?
Well, also, if you made a crap wine, you're not going to pay to have it rated. If you're like,
Right.
oh, this one's terrible, you're not going to then go, hey, wine spectator, why don't you check this out and rate it?
Right,
You're
yeah,
just
that's true.
not
They're
going to
gonna-
submit it unless you're proud
We're
of
gonna
it.
brush it behind. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So
Right.
that makes sense. 95 and above would be a classic wine, something that you want to put away, bring it out on special occasions and drink the rest of your life, right? 80 to 84, a good, solid, well-made wine. That's fine. Okay. You know, nothing wrong with that. You're like, all right, I'm glad I plunked down my money for that guy. Though in general, I would want to be sub 20 if I just felt like it was good,
Mhm.
right? Dollars.
Right.
75 to 79, mediocre. I'm like, all right, fine. I could deal with that. That's fine. Minor flaws. And anyway, 50 to 74, not even recommended. So it's basically 50 and above, where 50 equals 0 for whatever reason. But
Yeah.
anyway, so those are the things. Take it for what it's worth. I always say wine ratings are for the beginning of a discussion,
Mhm.
not to define it. Don't listen to what any one person says. But if you see a general grouping around there of good quality ratings, at least should give you some comfort that this is probably a well-made wine, whether or not it may be your style that you
Right.
prefer.
Right.
So bearing all that in mind,
Now you can start throwing your scores in the
throw up
chat.
there what you guys throw up there. Nice.
Yeah.
Go ahead and type in what you guys are thinking.
Okay, so we have a range of 85 to 90. Linda's got a 90, Brenda an 87, Lauren 85, and John an 89. 90 plus for the first time in forever. Sing it,
There they
Jeff. Both Jen and Jason? Okay.
All right, across the board.
Then Julie, 1 million. My vote doesn't count. It's like judging a contest. Her relative. She already loves them and invested even before we opened it. Brian, 95, 99. If you eat brie and strawberry and
Oh
bacon
my
jam
God,
in
what a
bite
great
right
pairing.
before. Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I love how that shows the difference between without food and
Oh
with
yeah,
food.
food is.
Especially with something that
Yeah.
pairs well with it. There you
Mhm.
go. Jerry a 92, Chris a 92, very good with food.
Yeah.
Great Monty.
Ah.
See, I'll tell Monty, you said that.
That's right.
Robin, high 80s without food, 91 with food.
Okay.
And then Linda is cool with bacon too.
Right.
Yeah, okay, and Mark and Sherry agree with Robin, so.
All right.
Yeah,
I like it.
absolutely. I'm not having food. I would have said a 90.
Okay.
So I'm interested to have it with food,
Nice.
especially if I'm gonna have it with brie and strawberry and bacon jam
Right.
right before, because then
Yeah.
I'll be at a 99, like
Right.
Brian said, so. And then Chris and Robin, 100 Montepulciano is called a full
Monte,
Monte.
I
There you
agree.
go. Yep,
We're all seeking
absolutely.
that full Monty. By the way, Julie and Brian, we're going to be there in about 25 minutes.
to go
for
eat the brie.
dessert.
Well, we ate it all though, so
Sorry.
you might want to
We
rethink that.
didn't, so that's the joy of the charcuterie tray is it's so many different flavors and you get to try different, savory and sweet and fruity and salty and all the different combinations. And we had literally never made that combination before, but it was like, okay, how do you add a little bit of fatty, a little bit of sweet, like,
Mhm.
and it was like, I ate one and I was like, okay, maybe I'm crazy. And so I made him one and I was like, eat this and then take a sip. And he's like, oh my God. And I was like, okay, good. Oh my God. I feel validated that was like the best combination with this wine. I don't know if it was like the spice of the bacon jam or what. But I don't know if this is a better question for after the recording. So you can say, we'll talk about it later, but we were talking earlier about like the flavors of the charcuterie tray and with Italian wines and versus like American food versus Italian food. So like when Americans make pizza, if you were like order pizza somewhere, it's going to be it's going to be butter instead of olive oil. Whereas in Italy, all of their pizzas are cooked in olive oil. It's a different, it's like a savory, flavor instead of like the buttery or a little bit sweeter flavor. Like, does that make a difference when you're drinking wines from a region of how they even like flavor and?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, a style of wine is developed. To me, I think they'd have to really argue this strongly against me. Wine styling within different countries, in my opinion, very much developed along with their culinary choices. And that's why they do what they do, right?
That makes sense.
And so they are going to pair better. And there's a reason, it's not just the easy answer, right? Where you say, oh, well, it's an Italian wine, I'm going to put it with an Italian meal. No, those were developed over hundreds of years to work hand in hand. And
So it makes sense
makes
to
sense,
do that.
yeah.
I mean, even if you don't know anything about wine, you're like, okay, if I'm drinking Italian wine, maybe I should get Italian food. If I'm
Right.
drinking, Argentinian wine, maybe get an Argentinian dish, something like that, which would be
Right.
harder
And-
to come by.
and it's not exclusive,
Right.
obviously, because
But it's the easy choice.
it is the easy choice, right?
Mhm.
Because one of my favorite pairings is German Riesling
Mhm.
with Thai food.
Which did not develop alongside one another.
Right,
shockingly.
exactly. So, but it is great because you've got that juxtaposition of the spicy and the sweeter wine.
Mhm.
So that it can work both ways, but yes, I do believe that there is a difference. Julie, like when you're talking
With the
about
olive oil.
with the,
and
the
stuff,
olive
yeah.
oil versus butter and the way it's going to play with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even like we say Italian dishes, if you go to like a non legit Italian place in town, I don't know which is which, you know, like we can't ask like, excuse me, do you make your pizza with butter or do you use it with olive oil?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like the difference, because of course, any fast food pizza places, it's going to be butter because it's cheaper.
Right.
But
Right.
the places that are trying to be legitimate,
Authentic. Mhm.
authentic, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes a huge, even in just our charcuterie tray, like that olive oily flavor of the things that we choose that are in olive oil and even the olives we put on our charcuterie tray, it's like, yes, this is amazing with a real Italian wine, like freaking fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
And I'm going to catch up with the chat a little bit.
Mhm.
So when we were talking about the differences in being an authentic
Mhm.
pizza or not, Linda mentioned, which is true, so much of our tomato sauce that we get like at the grocery store or whatever has a lot of added sugar in it,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
where you're not going to get that if you're eating at, you know, most of the especially the smaller restaurants that you're going to go to in Italy, where it's actually like being made there. And yeah, so,
Right.
or if you're going to someplace that's more of a chain, they're obviously going to have a lot of sugar in their tomato sauce.
Right.
And then, so Chris asked about this, what pizza would go best? And he voted for straight up pepperoni, fresh tomato, and basil sauce on top of mozzarella, real basil. Yeah. And
Nice.
then, yeah, absolutely. And then Chris said that's what Jen said. Okay, so they're talking about that,
Right.
having the actual real basil on there and the actual like fresh leaves
Right.
and stuff. So
Very
what do you
nice.
think? Pepperoni?
Pepperoni, yeah, absolutely. You know, what would be really good too, you know, the lasagna with the meat sauce would be
Mhm.
great. And the other thing,
Well, and we do Italian sausage in our lasagna too.
right, which would be,
Mhm.
yeah, that would go great with you because that pick up on that herb notes and that kind of
Mhm.
thing. And really, I think eggplant Parmesan could be really good with this too.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what scula is. Scula? What is that?
Oh my gosh, I'm like typing as fast as I can and can't spell. But because I was gonna say their prosciutto pizza
Mhm.
is to die for, and they have gluten-free crust that's actually like very good.
Yeah, and they're not afraid to make their sauce taste like something. It was so good. I'm so picky at pizza.
We're there. It's probably our second most frequented restaurant in town.
Oh, we need to try it then.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
over on our side. You're gonna have to come to the northwest side.
It's
Yeah, well, you know, if we drink too much, we know a place we can crash. So there you
That's
go.
I don't think
Italian
it's a
Greek
eat-in
concept,
restaurant. I
pretty
think
good.
it's only carry out. I don't know.
No, they did just open a second location downtown, but the original is right by our house on the corner. It's on 34th across from the YMCA.
Yeah, it's where Nero's used to be.
Yeah. And so yeah,
Okay.
we go and sit in
Okay.
there once every other week, maybe. It's fantastic. It's a Greek and Italian mashup. It's what he just said. Mashup's a great word, but it's so good. Their wines are all Greek, which is different.
Well, you
But
said we were gonna do a Greek wine, right?
yeah, well, we have done Greek wine. We'll do it
yeah,
again.
we've done them.
Yeah, we did we
We've
did
done
one
3.
bottle. We've done
Mhm.
3?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it after the recording. Let's we'll
Right.
go back on track, finish the recording, and then we'll talk about local cuisine.
Focus.
All right, bringing it back in,
All right, would you like for me to
said the ADD guy.
advance?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we're about to thank our sources and then
Yep.
we'll reveal the wine for next week.
Yes. All right. Thank you to Wine Folly, always. Those guys are amazing. 750.com, Wikipedia, Vine Pair, Wine Cooler Direct, and August Imports. So
Yep.
these guys were so small, I couldn't even find their website. I had to go through the importer.
Oh,
So
Well, thank you to August.
So,
You mentioned them with the
yep.
label too, so there you
no,
go.
they're great. They bring in wonderful things.
Awesome. Ready?
Yes. So next
Next
week,
week.
we are going to, and it may surprise you guys a little bit, we're going to return to something for a good reason.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
We're going back to Australia to drink another Shiraz because I was able to snag this guy on a deal and make it so that it will fit into the price range that we like to do
Okay.
on the wine of the week. So this is a tiny, tiny producer, right? Brash Higgins making real artisan stuff. Wine enthusiast rating 92. So I'm going to be excited because it will be close enough for many of you that had the other one that you can compare the two and decide where you're going to go. But I wouldn't normally jump right back to the same region, but I don't want it to sit around.
Mhm.
So anyway,
I love Australia. We can go there whenever we want to.
right, yeah. So anyway, so that's what we're gonna do. We're jumping back to Australia, the return of Shiraz,
Yeah, and anyone who can find kangaroo.
right? Yeah, good luck on the kangaroo, but
But they evidently
you can get it
carry down
online.
there.
Yeah,
I
it
just
literally
read
was listed as
There
a
are more
pairing.
kangaroos than people in Australia. I just read that like
Oh,
2
really?
days ago.
Wow, well, there we go. Good for the kangas.
Well, bad for the
So-
people there.
So anyway, big red meals, right? Sharp stuff, cheeses,
Mhm.
mushrooms overall. I mean, I like to put some fun things on there,
Yeah.
but you know,
Eggplant, if you're going
Egg-
like vegetarian.
sure,
could you do
eggplant. yeah, if you did eggplant with feta and stuff to kind of give
Okay,
it
something
some,
to yeah, punch it
take it
up
up there.
some.
Yeah,
Okay.
you could do all that.
All right.
Absolutely. So join us again. Do like a comparative almost two different styles ish of they're not the same winemaker. They are not the same wine philosophy.
Okay, so what are you referring to? Like you have.
Oh,
be
to
more
the Penfolds
specific with-
28
There
that we
you go.
have. So we did the
Okay.
Penfolds 28
Last week, right?
last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're going to go back to Shiraz again because of a great opportunity to get this awesome wine in here.
So if anybody wanted to do a live comparison at their house, do we have Penfolds or we're out of it completely?
No, we still have some.
Okay.
Yeah, if
well,
you
there
really
go.
wanted to
If you
do
really
a
wanted to do live
side-by-side.
comparison, then you could do the Penfolds with the,
Yeah.
what's this one called?
The Brash Higgins.
Brash Higgins, that's right.
The Omen Setter is a
Shiraz.
single vineyard.
Okay,
And yeah, this guy makes some crazy stuff.
awesome. So are there any last questions, comments, anything before we stop the recording?
All right, well then.
Okay.
It's time.
Thank you for the thumbs up. That way I know that you're like, no, I'm good. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, everybody, let's
Cheers,
have a
everyone.
toast.
Cheers.
La Quercia, thank you.